A variance to be granted to allow the completion of the construction of a garage at the rear of the property 2 foot 4 inches from the property line. The property is zoned low density residential. The residential district dimensional standards require a minimum side and rear setback. This is side yard setback of 5. Let's see, the applicant has stated that the scope is a carport for an RV. The subject property is a proposed 850 square foot garage at the rear of an 8,000 square foot lot located at 210 East 3rd Street, Trinidad, Colorado, 81082. Public noticing has been accomplished for this hearing this evening by posting and publication. Should the variance be approved, the applicant will be required to obtain the required building permit and comply with all international residential code requirements. And building coverage calculations were provided by Keely Williams, a Colorado licensed architect, and are under the maximum of 60% allowed by the municipal land code. However, of note is the lack of impervious surface in the rear of the primary dwelling structure. On page 2 of your staff report, I would call to your attention the 6 criteria that each have to be satisfied for the commission to grant a variance. And it's the burden of the applicant to demonstrate by a preponderance of evidence that each of those 6 criteria are satisfied. I can review those criteria if you would like. Number 1, that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions such as irregularity, narrowness or shallowness of the lot, or exceptional topographic or other physical conditions peculiar to the affected property. Number 2, that the unusual circumstances or conditions do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. 3, that because of such physical circumstances or conditions, the property cannot reasonably be developed in conformity with provisions of the zoning ordinance. 4, that such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the applicant. 5, that the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, the historic preservation district, or other district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property. And 6, that the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance that will afford relief and is the least modification possible of the zoning ordinance provision which is in question. And with that, I would turn it over to the applicants.
Okay, anyone here in the audience come forward?
Hi, I'm Keely Williams. I'm the architect that's helping.
You're gonna have to talk louder.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I know, I'm so short. I have to print that. So I'm the architect. I helped them with their drawings. I was brought on only a few weeks ago because the applicants really started this project without going through all the proper channels. I don't think that the intention wasn't to circumvent the channels. I think that they just had, because the footprint of the former garage is the same as well, it's not a garage, it's a carport, not a garage. So there's no power, there's nothing of that sort. The footprint of the former carport is the same as the one proposed, but the one that was there before, it had some, it wasn't as good for the neighborhood. It wasn't as and it was also in severe disrepair. I believe, and that they'll be able to testify on this a little bit more, but I believe they were working with Kent before on this, before he left, Kent Robinson, building inspector, and it was determined that they needed to tear the structure down. So the former structure was on the slab. It's about 9 inches. It's got rebar in it. I went out and looked at the site. It didn't indicate that there was any settling or anything like that. The site itself is very odd and it is peculiar. It's a full block lot, and there's only a couple of those in the neighborhood. So with the ones that do exist in the neighborhood, they usually have the garage, the residence in the front with no driveway in the front. And in the back, they have a carport or a garage and a driveway next to it. And the reason for that is so that they can drive around to get to that long, skinny middle portion of the site. So they have that, and then to make matters worse, it's on a pretty steep grade. So the driveway, it's driveway level on the east side, and then it goes down, and immediately the carport starts. And it goes down maybe about 4 feet, and then it goes over about 24 feet. And then there's a really tiny space between the lot line and the carport. And so they're asking for a variance on that. They are kind of improving what was there before. They're trying to go through the proper channels, which is why we're here. I think that even if they had come to y'all at the beginning, before they started any new construction or building or demolition or anything like that, I have a feeling we would still be in this hearing because the site dimensions are so unusual. But it is an improvement to the neighborhood. What they had before was in disrepair, so they are improving it. They have this beautiful, they had wood fencing before where you had to drive through to the middle of the property and then back up into the carport. They're going to improve the curb and gutter on 4th Street, which I'm so happy about because I live in that neighborhood too. And you'll be able to pull directly into the carport. There won't be any electricity, there won't be any water in there. And then in terms of the building, what they've proposed and what they've started, they have engineered trusses, they have heavy timber, they have non-combustible materials, which is something that if you're going to be that close to a property line, we really want to look for that non-combustible material. The other thing that the city suggested, and I would maybe make this recommendation to y'all should you decide you want to approve the variance, is maybe put some conditions on it. Say there needs to be non-combustible materials, this is not a dwelling unit back there, this is strictly for the use of a carport. The rainwater distribution that comes off the roof, there needs to be gutters that go out to the 4th Street so that the neighbor isn't encumbered by any rainwater or anything like that. The neighbor is okay with the distance. They have an unusual lot too, and because of the grade, there's kind of this retaining wall that's would be kind of inhibitive of them to build anything near the structure that Z&VC are proposing. Obviously, anything's possible in the future. We don't know what that holds, but I think that if the neighbors are okay with it, if the requirements for being that close to the property line are satisfied in terms of water and non-combustible materials, I think that a variance could be a good solution and it would allow them to move forward on their improvements. If you'd like, I can have the Z&VC talk a little bit more about their project. Is there anything architecturally that you have questions for me on? Really, my capacity is just to help try to facilitate some of the city steps and help, provide some architectural and building guidance, and that's really my role.
So basically you came in on the building permit side, is that what you did?
Yeah, I came in when they started having, trouble with the city was saying you're not going through the proper channels, and they were right, and the Z&VC, they just didn't know. They were mistaken, and I think they thought that because it was on the same footprint as before, that they didn't need to get a variance. So they just didn't know. So I came in to help them with that process, get their paperwork in, make sure the structure is something that is not only supports the neighborhood, but is something that is,
I'd like to have them come forward.
Okay.
I have a question.
I have an technical question before.
Go ahead.
So you're saying this is on the same footprint, but isn't this new structure significantly bigger?
It's taller.
It's taller, it's not.
But it's not wider, and they're really limited because of the driveway on that side, and they really need that driveway in order to get access into the middle part of the property.
Why is access to the middle of your property so important to the vehicle?
Well, it was like that before because you were pulling in and then backing up. But even if you wanted to get, any sort of, equipment in there, or you wanted, just having any vehicle dimensions in general, it's about 8'6", so it's the minimum that you could possibly have. And they can't just move it over because of the slope. They would have to regrade everything that was there. They'd have to do significant structural work.
If you want to run. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this. Is that what it was originally?
Yeah, this is what it was originally. So it had a fence in front.
Oh, that was the before.
So it's not the same footprint?
It's the same, yeah, it's the same width. It's just not the same height. The height before was probably more like 10 feet or 8 feet, but it doesn't, it's the new height, it like makes it look a lot bigger and it is taller, which will accommodate larger vehicles and things like that, which is good. It doesn't exceed any height restrictions for the neighborhood.
So it's not coming out further?
It's not coming out further. It's the same distance from the property line that it was before.
Because they can't come out further because the road is there.
Yeah.
Right there, 4th Street it comes out on 4th.
Yeah, and they've actually done some curb and gutter work already because you can see in that picture there was no curb or no sidewalk, possibly.
Can I ask my architectural question now?
Okay.
So I'm concerned about the slab. So is there, I mean, like how do we know that, how can we know that the building's gonna stand up? Or, I mean, do we have any assurances of anything regarding that?
Yeah, so we have details on that, and they're in the drawing packet of the attachment of the columns. They're 6x6 columns. Attachment to the slab. Slab's about 9 inches. It has rebar in it, and it's pretty old. So I would think that if there was any settling or something like that, I would have definitely seen any cracks, but there weren't. And the trusses are all engineered, and then they're strapped according to like what I call hurricane standards, which is what you would need for, you know, something like this, which is open on multiple sides, and you don't want that uplift in a gust.
So they didn't pour a new slab, it's
No.
the existing slab?
It's the existing slab, so that's kind of how we know that the footprint's the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Because it's
good
there's just
detail.
nowhere else to pour.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Shall I have a Sandoval?
Yes,
Come up,
please.
thank you.
State your name.
Randy Sandoval.
Rosalind Martinez?
Okay, bring us some information.
Oh, just doing a carport, and one evening I went home and there was a stop order. And I had talked to Ken and he said just go ahead for me to get a thing that there was a shed there before, and I did get him one there. A picture of it, that there was a shed there from the courthouse. You wanna see it? Sure. These are my drawings for what I'm doing. There's a few changes in them.
When did you meet with Ken?
Oh, it was during COVID time. And that's why I had stopped, like 3 years ago, like 2021 or something like that. And then when it all kind of ended, I went back and then I went down and there was nobody, a building inspector. So I started it,
We had building.
I started doing it. And then that's when I went home and there was a stop order on my deal. And here's for the driveway that I did concrete back in, a couple of years ago. For the driveway to back up into the concrete, the carport.
You want to see this? You need this? Okay.
And I also was charged $400 for the city. There's a receipt for that. I don't know what that's for.
Do you have a permit?
What does it
Yeah, that's
state?
permanent.
It should state on there what it was for.
And then I have a thing from the neighbor.
A letter.
saying that I'm good.
From 2014, 214, that's the neighbor, the
Yeah.
downhill neighbor?
Right.
The one
Okay,
that's
Where-
in-
yeah.
can we see that one?
So the city charged you for a permit? I don't know.
No, we didn't get charged for a permit, we have to pay for that.
And here's where the carport was at before.
When the carport was dilapidated, it was like dangerous back there, so we had to tear it down.
The $400, so you know, is the application fee for this process, the
Oh.
safety and variance fee.
Thank you.
So they never pulled a permit?
No, there was no permit.
That was never part of the conversation when you met with Kent Robinson?
No. No. Miss Hill told me about this $400.
No. If you met with Kent Robinson pre-COVID about this project, and you guys kind of came to a decision that needed to come down, I just feel, I don't feel like somebody would not bring up about a permit process, because it is in the code about if the structure's gonna.
Well, he did tell me that I had to get a permit, but he disappeared.
So that inhibited you from getting a permit?
Huh?
That inhibited you from getting a permit?
No. I just didn't get one.
Can I ask now, what was the date? Kent Robinson worked until 2022, am I correct?
It was till this year.
22, until late last year. Our new building inspector started early this year.
Right. So Kent Robinson was still on board in 2022.
Well, I had a paper, when I filed this thing out here, it was for the city of Trinidad for me to get one, and I just never did. It's not dated, I'm surprised why it's not dated, but.
And then as far as.
Oh, it's 3622,
What's that?
it's 3622.
Yeah, see, Kent Robinson was still on board at that time.
Yeah.
Right. Kent Robinson was still on board at that time.
That's when I filed for this, but I never did get one.
And that's also why we got stopped, because we didn't have a permit.
Yeah, anything over, has to be above 650? Or am I stating that right?
Anything over 110 square feet, you gotta have
That's right.
concrete slab,
Well,
and you gotta get a permit, period.
And what I would say is the carport, if it was on the same slab as the current, it was already encroaching in the setback. So we wouldn't have allowed this one to be built in that same footprint and allow a continuing encroachment. So either way, this would have had to come in front of the planning commission to consider this variance application.
So when you talked to the other inspector, he told you it was okay to rebuild that, right?
As long as I got a permit and I didn't.
See, if you would applied for the permit, then that would have came through just like what Audra told you there. You would have known that you had
a building permit, sorry.
go ahead.
A building permit is detrimental because, we are talking about life and safety issues. Even though it's covering a vehicle or whatnot, we still have to look out for life and safety. And that's first and foremost, that's part of what our code is based on.
I wouldn't build anything to hurt anybody.
No, and nobody would say that, no, I'm not implying that you are. That's not what I'm implying. But we have, things in the code that, are protecting our neighbors. And yeah, I would agree, okay, so you have a letter and your neighbor's okay with that. But we should have had a permit in the very, very beginning. So we can ensure, because then it would have came here a long time ago. And we could have addressed a lot of these issues and maybe with a small redesign or something. I can't answer that question. I don't know, but I know, number one, building permits are, you were aware of that. And you, because you said, I was told, but I didn't get one. So to me, that's, you know, that is our biggest part. Again, it's life and safety. You did know that you were supposed to get one, and you did not follow that channel. We could have saved a lot of, I don't wanna say grief, but, you know,
And that's why we're here.
no, and I know that, I know that. Go ahead.
So what you have built there now, is it built to the standards that Keeley drew for you?
Yeah.
It's built just like this?
Well, what I was gonna do, I was trying to get out of the way, the cheaper way, and just run some 2x4s on the trusses, and then just run my pro panel. But I just decided to put 5/8 OSB up there and then run my.
So it's not built to the way Keeley designed it? Like what you have already up right now?
Yeah, like I said, there was a few changes, but I did it for the better, not for the worse.
So, pretend you hadn't started building anything, right? You're 2 feet away from the line.
Yes.
Could you go in? Because you're still gonna have to build a permit. You couldn't go and just meet
No.
this.
No, because I already have my walls up and
No,
everything.
no, forget that, because you did that without a permit, right?
No, he couldn't move it over because there's a driveway that goes back to the, into the interior of the
And then we
building
have to mess with
that
the
was
trusses.
pre-existing, and so that's why he's over on that side. And it actually is one of the best looking, I mean, that encroachment, there are several areas that are encroached in that area.
It's terrible in that area.
112 East Third is the closest one that, I mean, they have, I mean, the building's on the property line. So on this one, you've got the building, and he's got his overhang, and his neighbor's considerably lower, and set back way away from it. It does not look, I mean, you couldn't tell it was right on the property line. I mean, if you look on it, you can see, well, yeah, those eaves are kind of close to the property line, but it's not a it's not a fire hazard because there's no physical proximity to another building. It looks good. It's a good use of space. It is. There are conforming. There's lots of in that specific street. There's lots of people that are non-conforming. So that I don't have a problem with the variance part, but I mean there's definitely conditions that need to be handled.
I'm gonna cut back them trusses, and I am gonna put, if you allow me to, I am gonna cut back them trusses. I'm gonna put gutter, and I'm gonna put snow rake on the pro panel. That way the neighbor don't get nothing. And I am gonna put gutter down to them. It's just right down from you. I'm surprised you haven't seen it. It's a block away from you.
Well, I seen it. I see it.
Okay.
So I have one quick question, because you said you were just contacted, just like real recent. So these are your drawings?
These are the Sandoval's drawings, and I reviewed them for their, like, architectural integrity. So I can't stamp anything that I don't review or that I can't sign off on. These are my license.
Thank you.
So, forgive me for not knowing the answer to this.
No
I know
worries.
you can sign off on this, and I know you can sign off on some foundation stuff.
Yeah.
But in our staff report, it said there's no foundation stamp submitted.
The foundation was just what I observed, and that what from their testimony of what's there and the rebar that was there.
So you didn't stamp it?
I drew a detail of the connection. The one that's not pencil drawn is what I drew. In addition, with some additional information.
This one?
Yeah, I drew that one, which is a site plan, which was what was required for this hearing. And then there's a detail of the foundation, which I observed and got testimony about its construction. And then I drew the connection to it. So what he's got 6x6 columns, they're spaced properly, away from each other, and then they have an embedded, anchor bolt, yeah, and a base plate.
6x6.
Yeah. So it's kind of like overkill, right? But it looks beautiful and it's such an improvement to what was there, so.
It's just we're going backwards in the process.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that he went and he got engineered, trusses, that was wonderful to see. It's just that we didn't do step one, right? So, I'm trying, my goal is to try to help and negotiate and hopefully provide some, potential solutions of ways that we can move forward, so architecturally speaking. Yeah.
As far as the foundation plan, the other building sat not on this whole pad, I know it didn't. Am I correct?
No, that concrete probably been there since, 2005, 2006. And that other building was there before when it was snowing in that in 2007, and it got bent and stuff like that.
Now, the one to the curb and gutter, we did that a few years back to improve that driveway right there because of the condition of it.
That foundation that you put in there, did you put that in or was it there before?
The contractor had put that in there.
For you?
Yeah,
And he should have got a permit for that footer, right?
he should have. I didn't. It's been there for maybe since 2005. What is that, 15, 16 years?
And you put it on the same print that,
Yeah.
In the city's report, it says that this is significantly larger.
It looks
It's taller.
Yeah,
That's
it's
all it
12
says here.
foot.
It says it's a bigger footprint, is what it says in this report. Isn't that very misreading this?
it's
It
not
can
bigger,
be.
is it?
It's a little bigger, not
Yeah,
much
I think
bigger.
it's bigger.
And it also says that it covers 80 to 85% of the property.
It's a 30 by 30.
Well, I mean, as total building coverage of the property, which 75% is what's allowed, correct?
Right.
And then this report says also now you're covering 85% of your property. Is that not what I'm reading?
No,
It's a carport in the backyard.
Well, I understand.
There's
Trying to figure out how much, the total coverage on the wall. I don't know
So
that.
if it was wider, it wasn't wider on the neighbor's part.
If you
it
refer
was
to the
on
site
ours.
plan, there's a coverage calculation on there, and the max allowed coverage is 75%. Their coverage is 42.8%.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I could correct the record, there was a discrepancy with this property on our zoning map. It was showing the property as being zoned high-density residential, and in digging through the records, the map was incorrect. It's actually zoned low-density residential, and so the maximum coverage is 60%. And so, again, based on Ms. Williams' calculations, because she did stamp it as an architect, I relied on that number. I also relied on the setback numbers, because she's
So what does that
put
mean?
her license on
So what does that mean,
what is
what you just told them? Because we don't understand all that stuff.
So, what the code says is that you can't cover any more than 60% of your lot
Okay.
with structures. And you haven't, according to Ms. Williams' calculations.
Okay.
However, another consideration that everyone needs to think about is impervious surface. So, while you haven't covered it with structures, you have covered it with concrete. And so the concern is the water runoff and where that water goes from your property, because you can't affect your neighbors with your runoff. And so with concrete as a surface, that water's gotta go somewhere. Where is it going
It's
right now?
going to 4th Street down the curb
Then
into
we're
the
gonna put
gutter.
gutter up and make it right.
'Cause there's like a slant there already. And it's going to the 4th Street and it goes down to the gutter. And it starts all the way up from Chestnut, from Walnut. It runs all the way down into 4th Street from 3rd Street. And then where all the other houses, that big brick house up there, is the same way. It all runs down into Chestnut, into the gutter.
So when they submit for variance on a normal circumstance, are they supposed to have a survey by like Gary?
They don't have to have a survey, I don't believe, for the limited impact. Keep in mind, I got this at mid-street.
I understand, I understand.
We did require the site plan. We have the drawings from the architect. I believe we have what we need from them. And we can go on the assessor's website and verify the lot size. That information is there. I would assume that.
I just know that in our old areas, sometimes you think this is where your
That's
property
true
is,
statement,
and
too.
if there's no survey, how do we know?
I have a
that?
survey from Terry.
Do you have it with you,
Yeah.
sir? Can I see it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank
But it's old, it's been a while that we have
you.
that.
It's still,
It's gonna be good.
it'll be better than what we got.
Okay.
Let me see if I have a survey. Maybe I even have a survey, who knows? I have a copy of the portion of the survey.
So this doesn't show.
Yeah.
Right, it should be right here, right?
Yeah, right, on there, for you guys, yeah.
So it wasn't built when this was done in 2006.
Right.
So you built.
No, this one, you talking about this one or the old
The
one?
old one.
The old one was, I told you, was built around 2006, right before the snowstorm. 2 years or 3 years before
Yeah,
the
before we had that
snowstorm.
bad snow, I think it was 2009 or 8, I don't remember.
So was it affordable or just sat on top of the slab or what?
Yeah, it was a portable,
Metal.
That's the difference.
so I thought I could build one better and stronger.
Well,
And the
other
thing's
one
been
was
there
saying
3
it's-
years already, 3 months, and it ain't budged.
That's really on there. This one's over here, and then the garage way back here. A lot of space.
Even if the building was a little larger, is it still on the same concrete?
Yeah,
Is it still on the same
Yeah.
piece of concrete,
yeah,
even though it was built a little
Right.
larger?
Yeah.
because we didn't go into the neighbors, we went into our side.
The only thing
But I mean,
that,
what I'm saying is that the old
yeah,
carport
Right.
that you took out, the new carport, even though it's a little bigger, but it's still on the same piece of concrete.
Right,
I tore out the curb and gutters to come.
No, no, I'm talking about where you built
Yeah,
it.
yes,
It's on the same piece of concrete.
but I tore out curb and gutter to get in the backyard.
Is this the survey?
Yeah, that is.
Okay.
So does it show, it doesn't show the old garage on it?
No.
No.
But I showed you that picture I got from the courthouse earlier with that garage on there.
Panel.
My concern from looking at this, you're already encroaching on the neighbors in the back.
we are.
They're not, because they're not over the property, so.
They are.
So it's really with that one.
But that was already there, so, I mean, Carmen didn't have a problem with it. The only thing she told us was if there was any damage, of course, we would have to be responsible for that, which we will. I don't know.
I'm just trying to visualize all this.
Yeah.
Here's my house, and I have a shed right here,
Okay.
and there's where the old carport was right there. And I have a driveway on this side where I come in from 4th Street back into here, into the garage, because I have a little car garage with my wife goes in the summer.
That's their garage,
So
so
now, doesn't this go all the way across or
Yeah,
not?
yeah, it goes all the way across this bit.
So it's not the same footprint?
Can I approach?
Yes, yes, of course.
I'm trying to understand, I'm trying
But
to
it's
understand.
it's clear up, you can do it from the street.
Because this says it was 470 square feet, so it's doubled in size, so you extended footprint
Right,
by.
not much.
No,
He just lives.
not by maybe,
It was a.
maybe 5 feet this way. I don't know. It's not much.
And you put a for sale sign on it, you don't have to get a permit.
Well,
It was
okay,
just-
so what I would say is,
Minute dilemma in my brain.
But that's what it is, where's the market, that was the old car shed right, and that's running right up against the fence line.
So right now, show me where your new
that's,
property
she
is.
should be not from
Comes
there.
right there and it comes out a little bit more than right there.
She stamped
So it doesn't go all the way across.
because he still has to be able to drive back from here.
Yeah,
Oh.
to get
He's,
into
you
the
can drive back that way,
Got
and
it.
he's made it a
Thank
little
you.
wider,
Right,
cutting into his own driveway,
that way,
leaving the,
cause I still gotta get into the garage when it snows or whatever.
Chair, can I call for a point of order?
Sure.
You have half of your commission members hearing a conversation that
okay.
the other half aren't privy to.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, she wanted to look at this.
Shut up. Stay there.
Okay.
Okay, Janelle, you go ahead and go. Hear your question.
I was trying to figure out in my brain, like, what the old structure was, because in the pictures we have, it looks so much bigger, right? So he had something from the courthouse that showed the structure, and it's measured at the courthouse at 470 square feet. And this says it's 800 and some square feet.
Right. Well-
So,
Well, it can't be, because it's only went over 5 feet, and it's taller, but not like way wider. It can't be.
Is it
Unless
any-
they measured that first one wrong.
Is it any deeper?
Deeper.
Going back toward the house, you know, from the street
No.
to your house.
It's.
Cause I have a light pole there, there's a light pole there.
Okay.
So you
So you
can't-
can't,
And what's her name said that she talked to somebody and she got it off of the paperwork. Hill, or what's her name?
Paul.
Hall.
okay.
Said, because I have they went in there and put electrical pole there for the neighbors to run their electrical. And I couldn't go any closer because of that.
So thank you for showing, you know, the survey. When I look at the survey, it would appear that the front part of your fence line is actually built over your property line, which the measurements that I see from staff are measured from the fence, which I get. Did you measure from fence? Did you have the stakes in the ground that
There's no stakes, where I measured from the main structure, and then measured from the main structure and then went back. And that's how, and I'm sure it's not completely accurate, but it appears that they're on their property line.
That's what it would, I mean, in theory, when we take measurements that were provided by staff, and it would show we were, I'm sorry,
I think 19 to the fence line.
so
It is.
now I can't tell, I'm only looking at the survey, and the survey shows the fence being over the property line, over on lot 1,
On
which would
their
be,
side.
I believe I'm right, this should be lot 1 over here on the survey, correct?
No, it's the other,
this way.
This way?
This would be lot 1
Lot
over
one.
here.
Okay, so up here, that, if you look at the survey, it actually shows the fence line over, which means we're closer to the property line than,
Because when I have my fence line up, I'm even more now on this side than the fence line over here. Because the north, east and west fence that runs this way is a little longer from where I'm at. And it's been up already gonna be 3 months, and I have never heard anybody say anything.
I
It's,
understand.
it's not the idea that somebody's saying something, it's the idea that there's no permits. That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down
Okay,
to.
I'm sorry I didn't.
Because
get
if
a
you'd have
permit.
came in for a permit, it would have had to come here anyway.
Right.
It would have had to come here anyway. We would have had a foundation plan, we would have had a building plan. I don't even know what your roof pitch is.
It's a 12-4,
And,
and that's recommended. A 412.
we don't know what the wind load, we don't know what the snow load, we don't know none of that.
I have a manufactured, trusses.
Right, but we still don't know.
You want that?
When we ask for a structure, you know, when this all comes to head, it's gonna give all that data in that realm for us to base,
You want to see
base
the
our.
truss plans?
But
I have them right
again,
here.
this would have been brought forth in the permit part of it. You know, that's what's going on here, because it feels like we're gonna have to go back, that's what we're doing, we're going backwards. Instead of starting at the beginning of the permitting process, and there was everything that you were supposed to bring to the table, which would be, again, foundation plans, your building plan, it's gonna show your snow load, it's gonna give us a plethora of information.
And it would have told you what your setback, it would have told you about that. Once you give us your plan, we would have said, well,
Well, we understand
you're gonna have
that,
to
and
change
that's why
it.
we're here.
you're gonna have to change it a little bit
Because
because
it's already costed us a ton of money. It would almost be like impossible. And I understand, you know, it's not your money, it's not your house, but we put a lot of money into that to move that thing. And I understand where yous are at, but that's why we're here. To ask for some compassion for us. You know, we work hard for our money. We didn't
We're not here.
hurt anybody or try to hurt anybody, we're just
Trying to
honest working
do a
citizens.
carport.
And I would argue that because of that, that we should look at moving forward in the situation, and if we need to put regulations on it to address something, do that, but they're operating, I believe, in good faith, and I think that it would be a travesty for us to stop their cardboard, stop all the work that they've done based on a couple inches. That's just freaking arbitrary, because if you look at the actual, how it sits on the site plan, it's not a hazard in terms of fire, it's not a hazard in terms of runoff, if they, once they address the runoff. It's on a foundation that was already poured. I mean, that wouldn't have changed had they come in for a permit. It's the same permit, it's going on a slab that it exists. It's in a neighborhood that has tons of non-conforming structures, and so I think that we are being punitive if we block their carport. We're just being mean, and I'm opposed to that.
And, you know, we worked hard to save that money to do that. And I understand it's not, that's why we're here.
Thank you for coming in.
okay, Janelle?
I have a question. So, the permitting part really has nothing to do with us, right?
Correct. That's correct.
So,
That
If
will
we
be a
were-
second hurdle.
okay, so if we were to grant them a variance, if that were the case, what happens after that? They have to meet the standards that are in
The
place.
building code, that's correct.
So all we're really here to decide is whether we would allow that footprint to be encroaching, right?
Correct. That's correct. And so what I would refer the commission back to are the 6 criteria that you have to consider, and that the applicants have to evidence to you that each of them are satisfied in order to approve the variance. And again, the only other thing I would agree with is that should you grant the variance, you definitely have to address the water, the runoff on that. That's regardless of you know, appearance or any other circumstance. That's probably the most important aspect of this whole process. Gutters, even if you condition gutters, there may be an issue with maintenance of those gutters. And I don't know how you want to address that, but keep in mind that we should never be doing something that affects the neighboring property negatively, because then the city of Trinidad is responsible for that negative impact, regardless of any other circumstance. And I know you can have the best intentions with gutters and what have you, but it's a concern. I don't know if you want to come, up to you. Again, I would refer you back to the conditions, and then you need to give some real thought on if you're going to grant an approval, what the conditions are to mitigate any impact to the neighbor. Now, the letter from the neighbor has not been submitted into the record. I know she passed it to you, or they passed it to you. I would certainly recommend that the very, very least it be submitted for the record. But the other thing to keep in mind is we're talking about current owners. We're not talking about future owners. So while the current neighbor may be fine with what the proposal is, that doesn't mean that future neighbors would have the same opinion. Especially if there's a problem down the road with maintenance of a gutter or what have you.
So that will be inspected. If the gutters are up, they'll go up there and say, hey, this is okay, right?
It'll be the one time, but then thereafter,
well, they can come and make sure that we're keeping that up so that it won't affect the neighbor's property.
but you have to realize how many structures there are in Trinidad. That's not
Well,
practical for the city.
that's all over the whole town.
I was gonna put seamless gutters up there with that one guy that does them all the time. And he's good.
I think what worries me the most is when we talk about water. When we had those rains, even this last year, we had some good rains, but not like the year before. We had some torrential downpours. And water went wherever it wanted to go. And I don't care if you had gutters on there or whatnot.
So that was
Those
all over the
torrential
town?
downpours and those, just, I guess as a contractor in general with my style of house, I witnessed water just fly off and miss the gutters because there was too much of it. It went in places that I would have never thought it would go, and it went in every place. We have to be thoughtful about stuff like that, because just because you have gutters doesn't mean you have full control.
And
you don't have control of that water.
Nobody has full control of anything.
Exactly. No,
So
I
even if we
agree with
didn't have
that.
an existing
I agree with
building
that,
there.
but my point would be is when we're so close, and if it was to flood out and somehow, I'm sorry, I just need to finish with that. If that water went down, are you gonna be responsible for the flooding of somebody's basement? When we get into that kind of
I
situation?
have that paper from Carmen, Miss Munoz there, and I will be responsible if I
But
can.
you see what I'm saying? I mean, that's, those things that.
But that's an unreasonable request because you can't stop Mother Nature.
No, exactly.
So it's not gonna just be them
I
that the rain's
understand.
it's gonna be all the neighbors, so are all the neighbors gonna be responsible for their neighbor?
Understand that, but that's part of the reason why we have our setbacks,
I
those
understand.
are reasons why we have certain things in motion, because if you were this far back, it wouldn't concern me.
Let me ask
But
you
being that
something.
we're right here, and plus, I just gotta finish, I just wanna say this one last thing. Plus, when I look at your survey, and the survey tells me that your fence is over the line, and everybody's measured from that, means your building is even closer to the property line than, and that worries me. Those, just a couple little things, just throws another little wrench in.
Yeah, approach. Just something for the council to consider, for staff to consider. Instead of relying on something like gutters, which Ms. Barrett is saying, yeah, well, what if you don't clean your gutters and then that's rolling over? So what I think that maybe a potential solution might be is the site work. And even though we don't have very much room over there, I think that a potential condition would be it cannot drain onto the neighbor's property. You can't have it sloping. So maybe that means, some sort of architectural solution like a channel drain or a French drain that's could handle something like a flash flood, or a lot of water coming off that side of the roof. Just so that you have that site work instead of relying on gutters, channel drain, you know, not a ditch, but you know what I mean. For runoff.
property?
Hold it. Go ahead.
It would be on their property with the little, maybe 19 inches that they have, a channel drain, something like that, so that when that water pours off, it's going into some sort of drainage system out, immediately out to the street. And maybe there's a lip or something like that, so that if there is flooding, it's not flooding and spilling over to the neighbor's property, it's on their property. It's flooding their carport before it gets to their
But where the roof is, it's gonna go not onto the property, it's gonna go onto the neighbor's property, right?
I think that in the photos, he has his rafters extended out, and he's planning on cutting all those back to about 6-inch overhang. So in that case, it would be on their
But
property.
you'd almost have to have some snow stops, because if you're putting a metal roof, I used to put up steel buildings.
It's on here. I haven't.
And when that stuff starts getting hot, and it'll melt sometimes real easy. But other times, the whole ice is going. A gutter ain't gonna stop it.
Right.
No way. It's gonna go right into the neighbor's house.
It requires, she asked me to put some snow stops up there, and I told her I would. I'm not gonna put 3, I'm gonna put 6 on her side. Cause it's 30 foot long and they're 10 foot 3. I'm gonna put 6. 3 2 foot from the bottom and be across, and then I'm gonna go up again and put another 3 foot. 30 feet of snow.
Mr. Myron?
This is the thing, that's their garage.
The old carport, did it drain off the same direction?
Yeah.
What would be the difference? You're talking 2 feet?
This is a lot higher.
Yeah, I know it's a lot higher, but it's
gonna shoot off.
still gonna go off to that same direction. It's still gonna, and if you have a cloud burst and nothing's gonna stop it. Even if you were right on the line, it's not gonna stop it. If you were back 5 foot, it's not gonna stop it. I think we're just going overboard a little bit.
A little bit.
I agree with Mr. Ron.
A little bit. And like I said,
Okay. Go
let
ahead.
me ask you something. If you really want to be concerned, go to 4th Street and look at them sidewalks and them curbs and everything. That's what the city or whatever the plan ought to be concerned about. Not because the guy's putting up a little carport. That's where somebody should be. Somebody is lucky they haven't tripped and broke a leg or something. Because the sidewalk up there is terrible.
But that's not what we're
No,
here.
I know, but that's what they're trying to tell me is that, oh my God, I really did something really wrong here. So, excuse me.
What we're trying to say is there was a proper channel to follow.
Okay, if you don't have anything else,
I don't know.
anybody else?
I have a question, actually, I drove by this today, it looks more to me like it's gonna be a garage than a carport.
No, it's a carport. It's going to be open on 3 sides.
Okay, there's one.
I only have
on
it
this.
closed on the one side, that way it don't get all the air. And I'm trying to hold the sun down from beating up on the cars and the pro panel on the one side with the 2x6 walls. I'm gonna run some pro panels there. But the rest of it's gonna be open. The 6x6 is gonna be open, and the front side and the back side is gonna be open. It's not gonna be a garage. A lot of people think that, but it's not. Cause there ain't gonna be no electrical or anything, plumbing or anything there. It's not gonna be, it's a carport.
And Mr. Moderato had a valid point. That existing carport that was there before never did any damage to the neighbor's property, ever. And this is gonna be the same structure there.
But this structure's up so high, it's
I
gonna
know.
shoot stuff further, because it's up higher in the air. Where the other one's a lot, you said the other one's only 10 feet.
Well, I think it was 12. The other one was 12.
But anyway,
This one is bigger, yeah.
so whatever,
this-
you have
yeah.
anything else to say?
No.
Okay, let's sit down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, questions? Art, do you want to confirm, as far as the variance, For us again, something like what Canal asked you, when we're given a variance, what, we can put certain things on top of that?
Requirements.
As far as
Conditions.
conditions are
Yeah,
concerned,
conditions.
certainly anything that would mitigate issues.
Okay.
I would liken it a little bit to conditional use permits in a sense. Variances, but you have to look at your criteria. If they've demonstrated to you that they've met all of the criteria, you can do any conditions that would mitigate any issues.
So I have one concern, and I'd feel better if the way I'm looking at that survey, if somebody else would look at it and see if I'm looking at it wrong. Because my biggest concern is they don't have an updated survey. And like, this is breaking my heart because that's my only hope at, right? The survey that's there doesn't show that old garage or the old carport.
Right.
And what I've seen when I was looking at that survey is their fence line is technically already over their property line. So that means that the measurements that everybody's taken are wrong. And I don't know if I'm not looking at it right, I'm not an expert survey person, but if everybody would look at that survey, the old one, to make sure, you know what I'm saying? Like, the way I'm looking at it, it shows their property line here, and they're encroaching
Right.
already. So without a current survey to show where everything is, in my mind, it's possible that they're already encroaching on the neighbors, so then you have all those measurements are wrong. And that's concerning me. Can we look at the survey and see if I'm right or if I'm wrong? Can we pull that up again?
Sure. Chris had a copy of what they
I'm sorry. I just
provided.
But that's.
She has seen it.
She said.
Well, the survey.
Do you want me to pass this down so you can look at it again?
Unfortunately, this isn't the condition of the fence. The fence, this is it, I don't know that it was the same fence, or maybe it was partially the same fence, but the fence jogs. So, like I said, I did the best with the measurements that I possibly could. I worked off the existing 210 East 3rd Street structure. And the back width, checked out with the survey. There, I didn't see any pins, so it wasn't like I was working off a pin.
Right.
But I can tell you that just from remembering how the fence goes, it starts on 4th on that east side and it jogs a little bit and it's not straight. So I don't know.
So that's my concern.
Neither do we.
So is it acceptable to say we don't give a final answer at this time, but they have to get a survey and they can get
We're definitely not here to create hardship.
No,
I just wanna,
not at all.
we're talking such a fine line. I just wanna make sure that
Okay, so I think it would behoove us all to go out there and look at this location, because when you look at that carport, there is a significant vertical drop to the neighbor's yard at 214. And so they've got a physical retaining wall in there that, I mean, survey this, survey that, I mean, it is the way it's gonna be. They're not gonna change that because.
If the legal description doesn't match, they have to fix it.
Agreed, but I mean, I have a fence, I encroach on my neighbor's house, and when you're built in there and grandfathered in with physical structures, and I'm talking like a retaining wall that's like 4 foot of dirt. I mean, I don't think that a survey on this one is gonna change that much. The neighbor that is being affected is well off to the side. They have provided a notarized letter stating that they're okay with this thing.
That hasn't been put in the record though.
Right, okay. But I mean, we have that document. What they are guilty of is they did not get a permit initially, and so I don't think that's worth making them take down the carport. I think that we need, if we're worried about the water, we can put in gutter requirements if we want to go farther. If you want to get toward the more extensive, we can add an additional condition that they put in a French drain or some sort of physical drainage on that side. But aside from that, I think that we're just being vindictive. So.
I want them to have their garage.
Okay.
I personally do.
It's not a garage, it's a
Or
carport.
Carport.
But at the same time, I want to make sure you're not encroaching on your neighbor legally,
On
right?
a letter saying that
According to
should
the
work.
survey, because that's
But what if she
legal.
sells that house
Right, so
and the next person comes
your
in?
legal description
She's
is
not gonna
important
sell
to
it, it's
your-
gonna go to her children. They've already put it in their names.
And her daughter's on the
What I
paper.
wish would have been presented to us is a survey, current survey, showing how your fence lines are now, how the concrete is now.
I wish somebody would have told us that before we
Okay.
came here.
Okay. How about we can we make it conditional on getting a survey? Or do you want to table it till we get a survey?
But I don't think the survey's gonna change that.
I don't think it's gonna change anything either, but it would make, it'll make some of our members feel more comfortable, and if they feel more comfortable, everyone should be in their comfort zone.
It's not gonna change.
And in the meantime, everything just keeps getting more room. My OSB that's up there and my 2x6s, my trusses.
All that money.
He's got a beautiful improvement, he's putting improvements, trying to do it right.
Okay. Who else wants to talk?
I'm done.
Questions? No more questions? Other than the staff report, do you have anything else?
No, I think I've stated everything I wanted to for the record and clarified any issues that were discovered during the application process.
Okay, anybody here for or against this particular application? Come forward.
What do you mean by that?
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
I'm for it. I think.
State your names.
I'm Ed Eisman, and I think, I agree with Mr. Norris. I think it's over detailed and a little bit too much big city. You're not gonna repeal gravity, and I don't care what kind of appurtenance you come up with, it's not gonna change. Mother Nature can defeat anything you can build. And it goes way beyond the capacity of municipal government to intervene and change it. So I think the gentleman has shown good faith. Sounds like a responsible citizen. I'd love to have him for a neighbor.
Thank you.
But I believe it's a little bit too much to put him through that. And I think Trinidad is not a sophisticated place. The rules that you've mentioned would probably result in San Francisco being demolished. With percentage of surface area paved, grade, water pouring off of one property into another. And I believe this gentleman deserves to get what he needs. And he should be responsible for directing the water as best he can.
I will. I do
But
now.
you're not gonna change what God decides to do. Excuse me for interrupting.
No,
That's why I said it. That's why we bring people forward, so somebody else can have some input.
Yeah, and everything you say is true, but it's just not applicable to the environment we're in here. It's a city with a lot of grade changes, a lot of weird street layouts, weird sidewalks, and it's always gonna be that way.
Hollow places under buildings,
Pardon me?
hollow places under buildings.
Yeah. It's not a normal place. And I think it requires some flexibility. And I don't think those that have voiced opposition to it are wrong. Technically, they're right. But I think you have to back off a little bit and realize you're not gonna repeal gravity and the geographic layout of the neighborhood. You just have to deal with it as best you can. Sometimes best efforts is all you can come up with. But this gentleman is doing his best. And I think he's put some investment in it that he probably had to struggle to afford. And I think the city should encourage that and not discourage it. And certainly not dismantle it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Anybody else for or against this application?
May I state for the record, because I don't know who Mr. Eisman was referring to as being against this variance. If it was me, I'm not against a variance. I'm taking a neutral position on the variance. I am pointing out any factors that planning commission should consider. But I'm not against the variance. That's up to planning commission to decide. That's why we have a board.
and if it was me, it's only because I'm kind of a code guy. And we missed a very valuable step in the very beginning. And that was pulling a permit and going through the proper channels. That is, you know, I'm not against this, and I'm not about to, you know, I'm not about creating a hardship on somebody, because I'm a working man too, and, you know, I save my money to do things to my place. But there is a channel, and those channels were brought forth in the very beginning. And don't take me the wrong way, but I'm going to use this term, is you chose a different path, not following the rules that govern our community. And that, to me, that is very, very, very important. As a contractor, I have to follow those rules. And therefore, that's my biggest, I ain't gonna lie to you, that is one of my biggest holdups, is the
And this is why
channels
we
were
came in
not
front of the
followed.
board.
Pardon me?
This is why we're here. To ask for
Please.
some compassion of humankind, because we worked hard for what we did there. We're hardworking people.
So, I don't know if you heard me ask Audra, you know, if we're supposed to be messing with the permitting side.
I get it, but as a contractor, I'm sorry.
So,
I'm allowed to use my voice, and
Yes,
I
yes,
get what
yes.
you're saying, but
I know,
thank you. Put me in check.
sorry.
No, I mean,
You're right. But these are the only 6
Correct.
things we can go off.
Correct.
Anybody else? Close the hearing. Commissioners, what's your choice? You can have, go by the 6 rules that we go by. And we can put stipulations in there. So when you make the motion with the stipulations. And if somebody comes up with another stipulation, we can amend the motion, start it over again. So whatever you want, it's your prerogative, gentlemen.
I'll move that we go ahead and approve the variance with the stipulation that he does all he can with the drainage, with the gutters, running it off of that street. And that would be my motion.
So gutters and,
Gutters and whatever piping that he needs to run it away from that into the street.
It's on a French drain?
Huh?
Like a French drain?
It's not a French drain, just pipe that runs it off the,
Downspout.
I would say, once it comes off, it'd have to be some kind of a diversion to bring it to Fourth.
well, that's what I'm saying. That pipe has to go all the way to the street.
Pipe or
A drainage pipe that goes all the way to the street.
or some other kind of drainage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
As long as it brings it down towards the street.
right.
So,
I'll
you
second
wanna,
that.
you wanna add to that? So it's more clear? Now?
I don't wanna be difficult. And I want them to have their garage or their carport. I think they are doing the right thing, trying to make it right. Even though it's backwards, I think they're really trying.
And I understand exactly what you're saying. You know, we don't want to make a hardship on anybody.
Right,
But none of us are perfect.
right,
He made a mistake,
exactly,
and he's paying for it now.
right. So my only concern is if he is encroaching on the neighbor legally, do we have, as a city, have any responsibility if we approve it without knowing if he's encroaching on his neighbor? I don't know. Is there a requirement for that? Because that's not part of the 6, so then I'm like, okay, if it's not part of the 6, then I approve it. If it's part of the 6,
What? I think you can make it a condition that we,
verify the lot line.
verify the lot lines
Okay.
before a building
That's
permit's
the
issued.
only thing that would make me feel better.
Okay, you can add to Mr. Monterono's.
So, I don't know how to do
Bring in,
Okay,
Bring
so
it-
she's just saying, and additionally, the approval of the variance is contingent upon the survey, the fence
Verifying
being,
that lot line.
the
Yeah.
fence being on the lot line.
Mhm.
Along with the gutters, the downspouts.
Within, well, you know, more plus or minus a foot,
Yeah,
is that,
I mean.
and bringing the water out to Fourth, is that?
well, we're still, the water, everything he said is still in
All right.
effect.
It's not going to change nothing, fellas.
I don't know, you wanna read that back to us?
Sorry.
So, it would be an approval conditioned on verification of the lot line to ensure that, the structure is not built on the neighbor's property. And then stipulate that drainage and, gutters, are installed and piped to run, I would assume to the
So the
street.
runoff is directed to Fourth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to the street.
Right.
Oh, that's what it says. Piping to run to the street, Fourth Street.
Okay, I wanna say one thing before we have a vote. What Danelle brought forward is very important, because if you ever wanted to sell your property, and you wanted to sell it, and once they took a survey, you'd have a problem.
Perhaps they could, see if the neighbors also have a survey of their property and avoid the expense of having to go through a survey, or see if, someone in our engineering office can verify the lot line there as well.
Right.
I think
I
like that.
I like that the best.
Yeah, I mean,
That way it
We'll
doesn't
just
cost
verify
anything.
before the structure's, complete.
That's
and-
perfect.
Yeah.
That makes me feel so much better. That was my,
Thank you.
So
Yeah, good
if
solution.
the applicants
good
would ask the neighbor that, signed the letter to see if they have a survey for their property, and bring that in, that would also be helpful to us.
Okay. I have a motion. Roll call.
Second motion? Sorry.
Monterano,
Yes.
Armijo,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Rolo.
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Leone.
Yes. Get the information we need and get it to the city.
Okay.
And you're good.
All right.
And then,
Get it.
if you're gonna do something, get a permit. We're a volunteer board up here. We all have jobs. We come in here to do volunteer work for people that wanna do something in Trinidad. We're not here to take away something or deny something. We're here to make sure that the code's followed. And we don't follow the code, that's when it comes back on us. And when it comes back on us, when we do one thing one way, somebody might come from someplace else and they'll say, oh, well, you did this. We're setting a precedent. And Kelly, you know that. You're the one that was up here when I was here. And I think you stipulated that to us. Whatever code. Code is code.
Code is good.
Okay, that's all I have to say. Next. First National Bank in Trinidad application to replace the digital sign electronic message board located on the corner of Bank Building at 100 East Main Street, Trinidad, Colorado. Whoever wants to come forward, come forward. Mr. Eidman, or who wants to come forward on this particular application?
Thank you. I'm sorry, it won't happen again.
Hi,
State your name.
Chris Edwin with First National Bank.
You can read
I have the
that.
opposite. Read it now.
No, not that, the whole entire.
It's over here. To right here.
Oh, well, that's pretty
Can't
fancy.
see. Yeah. Just-
Okay. So, I'm not sure what information you were provided other than the application. We were actually in here speaking to the Historic Preservation Commission, and they did approve us at that level and forwarded to your commission to grant us a variance. Apparently, the digital sign that we have on the front of the bank, we have the neon sign, and beneath that is the little rectangular digital sign that shows time and temp and a lot of community events we promote on there. The hardware of that sign was installed, I don't know, probably close to 30 years ago. I've been operating it for 30 years, and so I don't know exactly when it was installed. But anyhow, it's software driven, and as we all know, that software operates on an operating system, and as things progress, those systems and software start to not communicate anymore when the software is so old. And that's what's happened, is we've got software that we can no longer operate on modern computers. And so we can't change the sign. And so it sits out there, and we just want to replace what's already in there. We're not gonna be changing the size of the sign. It'll be the lights inside the sign will be replaced. And that hardware will be designed to where it will use an online web-based driver to put the messages out there. And we recognize that we are a historic building in town. We're probably, you know, kind of the iconic cornerstone building, and we don't want to become a flashy sign any more than what was already there. We want to keep it as much as it was, and so we purposely had to almost strong arm the sign companies into not trying to sell us this flashy full color digital sign. We wanted something just red that says words so that we can continue to put the community messages out there. And for whatever it's worth, I usually have a pile about this high of papers of messages that people want put out there, and I keep them in chronological order so that I keep fresh messages coming out there, and I purposely try to keep the messages short so that we realize we are on a corner of a very busy intersection, and we don't want people holding up traffic or causing an accident, so we try to keep the messages very brief and to the point. And so that's the intent, is that we will continue to use the sign for that purpose. But because code has changed from the time that sign was originally installed, which I know there were pictures in one packet that I was provided back to the 1970s that sign was on there. And so it's it's been there, people in the community are used to seeing it, they do kind of rely on it as a message board, and we're not trying to, change things, we just wanna keep it the same and keep doing what we're doing, so, that's what we're here for.
Staff? Is everybody ready?
She was very clear in her presentation, it was a non-conforming use prior to, previously non-conforming. And so, to extend the non-conformance, our code now, instead of a sign variance, sign exception, one or the other, it's essentially the same to allow the sign to continue. And the Historic Preservation Commission did recommend to Planning Commission the approval of the variance.
I think that you all have a letter here, and if you want, I can read it. It's almost exactly what the representative presented. It said the Personnel Bank in Trinidad requesting the City of Trinidad Planning and Zoning Commission grant approval of a variance to replace an existing sign structure on the corner of Main Bank Building located at 100 East Main Street, Trinidad, Colorado. The existing sign has been in place since 1970 when it's displayed time and temperature. In the early 90s, the sign hardware was upgraded and allowed brief messages to be displayed using software. Modern computer operating systems have made the software obsolete, making it impossible to send updated signs to the existing sign messages. Replacing the hardware with equipment that can receive messages via web-based software will allow for this sign to continue to function in its existing capacity. The sign is used to display brief messages about upcoming community events and on occasions bank products, holiday closures. The sign size, color, and appearance will remain substantially the same. Once the upgrade is completed, use of the sign will continue as it has been for the past 3 decades. Anything else you want to add to that, Audra?
No, I have nothing further.
I think this is straightforward.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything to discuss here.
Fitting it in the old sign helped make it, that made it easier, not making a new sign made it,
Right, yeah,
yeah,
it's,
that helped, I think.
it's gonna look pretty much the same.
Okay, if you don't have anything else, you can sit down. Nothing else from staff?
No.
Anybody here for or against this particular application?
I'm for it.
You can go.
To share a few little historical things. I know your focus is not history. The prior board that reviewed this is. But a few little anecdotes about that sign might be interesting. We have people that are close to retirement age on our staff who, when they were in high school, used that sign. And it's called an excuse. And what they would do is tell their parents when they were late, if you were bringing your date home, they would tell them that, well, we just went by the sign and it said we had another 10 minutes. And in the 70s, what we did is on weekends, we would retard that sign about 10 minutes. And then we would leave it retarded until midday Monday because we knew parents were going to go drive by there and look. But that kept a lot of young people out of trouble.
That's great.
It also gave the employees excuse to.
The other thing I'll share with you is I know you know private sector businesses compete with each other on a lot of levels. And at one time, the Trinidad National Bank had almost an identical sign on the front of its building. And so when I was a beginner in my job position, I was always responsible for keeping that sign set. And so what I did at one time is I started delaying the sign so we could have a few more minutes for customers to get in at closing time. And so I would advance it and or retard it actually a minute maybe every week. And I would look and see what the other bank did, and they started matching me. So after about 5 minutes of time, I realized they weren't checking the Bureau standards. They were just looking at our sign, and they would adjust theirs to ours. And I got them all the way to 10 minutes. Before they realized that, and then when it suddenly dropped, I knew that I was busted. But anyway. The other thing about that sign, it started out as a incandescent light bulb sign. And it had a bank of relays that the phone company would have been proud of. And it was a clunker. And I think we probably replaced a ton of lights. The little white, round, incandescent bulbs that would last maybe a month. And so that was my job, is getting a real flimsy ladder up there, climbing up there and replacing those burned out light bulbs. And the sign actually goes back to 1940, if you can believe that. The neon is actually circa late Depression era. And we kept the original neon, even though the hailstorms just blasted off of there. But the only thing that looks good is original neon. And so we have kept as much history there as possible. The modern LED faux neon signs are phony, and they look terrible. And so we've done a lot of things we can to try to keep it looking period, but we're talking about Route 66 period, and not 1890s. But that's history too. And a lot of people in Trinidad who have living memories of that sign, I think it would be missed a lot if it were not there. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Sorry for interviewing on your other guy.
You're allowed to come forward.
But you know, I'm for a little guy. And you know, when they open their wallet and do their best, and I think they should be recognized. And maybe you need a reverse permitting process. We're going to go measure your snow load now after you built it. And just backtrack, because a lot of people just don't know about the permits. And it's not that they knew about the permits, I'm going to blow it off, maybe I can get away with it. No, they just don't know about it. And so that's what I would suggest is a reverse permitting process for somebody that, in your honest opinion, you believe just didn't know. And ignorance of the law is not an excuse. I know that, and every lawyer will tell you that. But once again, this is Trinidad. We have some people that don't have master's degrees and all that. We have people that, you know, are from a different background. But anyway, thank you for your indulgence.
Okay.
Appreciate your review of our situation. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else here? Close the hearing. We need a motion. Make a
Make
motion.
a motion that we allow the bank to refurbish their sign.
I'll second.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
Marano,
Yes.
Armijo,
Yes,
Coker,
Yes.
Rolo,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Leone.
Yes, I just want to say one thing. We have our next meeting, it's the second Tuesday of the month. Maybe you can come back and give us some history. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks for your patience. Swapped you for me.
Good evening. Thanks for your time.
Good evening, folks.
Did you have clock kind of bars and work on it?
Yeah, if one's up. Yeah, it's
We're done?
the neon part actually.
Yeah.
Is that adjournment?
I knew him.
Oh, you did?
Did he adjourn?
I think
So
you
you
just
have
yelled the jersey.
It's over?
We used to have.
No, we will have a meeting on November the 14th.
But it looks.
It's over?
Perfect.
I can stop.